Welcome to the Ricky Mathews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. Hope you're having a great day as we continue to celebrate all the amazing people who are working so hard in the trenches to make this such a great place to live, work, and play. Hey, yesterday I had on the show the mayor of Pass Christian, and we chatted about a bunch of different things. We ended up getting to a conversation about the harbor, which was identified as one of the top, like #1 marina in Mississippi. By one of the sites that rank, and we got into a conversation about Shaggy's charter docks and about Ronnie Daniels, Captain Ronnie Daniels from the Fisherman Guide Service, and what he's brought to the table. And we talked about Rimmer Covington Jr. and that partnership, and it was just a great conversation, not knowing at the time that he was literally on the schedule for the show today. And we're going to have the opportunity to visit with Captain Ronnie Daniels, for the whole show. He's not just a charter captain, even though we'll talk a little bit about that. He's also kind of an entrepreneur, and he's also hugely engaged in the community. And, he's a multitasker, and most successful people are. So I look forward to catching up with him today. So without any further ado, let's move over to my friend, Captain Ronnie Daniels. How you doing, Ronnie?
Man, I'm doing great. Sun shining outside. It's not freezing cold. It's not snowing. Everything's good today.
Yeah, well, I want to get an update on the freeze situation. We'll come back to that in a second. But, hey, before we even get started on the agenda for today, I can see your dog in the background for people who are on SuperTalk TV or Facebook or YouTube can see that. And you were telling me the story of this dog that you didn't have intentions of it being sort of, coming in as a member of your family, but it happened. Where did it come from? Tell people that story.
Somebody dumped this puppy out near our hunting camp. And the first couple guys that got up there, they were thinking, oh, this dog's going to go, y'all don't feed it, don't fool with it, it'll go back home, right? And the next day it was still there. Well, the next day after that, my wife and I showed up, and I knew what was going to happen once she saw it. So she ended up leaving. I stayed for a few more days, had the dog with me. I thought we were going to get it into a rescue program. It was the craziest thing. The closer I got to the house, like my palm started. I did not want to go drop her off. So got to the house here. Demi made one lap around the front yard with our youngest Hank. He was laughing and cutting up. I looked at my wife. She said, no. I looked at her again. She said, okay.
Hey, it's hard, man. It's hard not to you spend a time with a puppy or a dog that has a great personality and has a way of connecting you. I laugh at Kyle. His dog is Hannah, and he says when he starts to show, Hannah sits behind him and gives him the side eye because she wants to go outside. But Kyle, it's who's the boss in your house, you or Hannah?
Hannah. She's behind me right now looking at me. Just
What kind of dog is Hannah?
She is a pitty mutt mix that my daughter got from one of the humane societies or one of the rescues in Mobile when she was going to South Alabama. And, one thing leads to another, and she ends up at our house, and she's never left.
Oh, wow. Again, it sounds like Hannah's a fun member of your family.
Oh, yeah. She rules the roost. That's for sure.
Hey, let me tell y'all both a really quick story. Talking about hunting camp, at my place up in the Mississippi Delta, my next door neighbor has a couple of labs, but one black, beautiful lab, and then a Chihuahua. I mean, an old Chihuahua. Okay. Well, the lab breeded the Chihuahua. I mean, imagine that. But the puppies look like labs. They're just beautiful little lab puppies with really short legs. It's the darndest thing. My grandkids, Riley and Brody, went up there with their dad, Keith Williams Jr., and we did FaceTime with the kids. I hate not being there when they're there, incidentally, but when I did FaceTime, they're both holding one of the puppies. One is gold, the color of a gold lab. The other was completely black. And they said, come on, Papa, let us bring it home. Let us bring it home. I said, there's no way. But imagine a lab with short legs. That's just kind of funny to think about, isn't it, Ronnie?
It is. It reminds me of a story. We had to call a dog at our hunting camp one time. Years back, somebody had shot a buck, and we couldn't find it. Well, This tracker shows up with a long-haired Dachshund, and at that place on the river, we have a lot of cockaburras, right? And for people that don't know what cockaburras are, they're a little spiky thing that will stick to anything.
We call them hitchhikers.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to stick to everything. Well, this little dog did a great job. It trailed the deer just like it was supposed to. But we have so many cockaburras and those little short legs, about every 75 yards, he was having to pick that thing up and brush the cockaburras out from underneath it because they would get so mad and her little legs wouldn't even touching the ground anymore. She couldn't hardly run.
Oh, so many stories. That's funny. Pets can create a lot of happiness and aggravations, I might add. But we got a dog, and I told Ann I don't want to get a dog, and we named it TJ, and it was a miniature Sheltie. It became part of my family, and then it gets cancer along the way, and we tried to save it. And I said the reason why I didn't want to get a pet is because they die, and I can't handle it. And it's just kind of part of the cycle of life, that's for sure. But anyway, we'll shift gears and move on to the more important stuff. Hey, I just wanted to thank you, first of all. You've become just not only a good friend, but you've really helped to be a great resource for it, especially this show for sure, but for SuperTalk Outdoors. I really appreciate you joining me and telling the story of Coast Fishermen. You're among 2 or 3 that join me on a regular basis, and I really appreciate it. It gives people kind of insight into the world that you work in. What's really interesting about what you do, Ronnie, not only through Fisherman Guide Service, but in your other businesses. For example, one of the things that Jimmy Rafferty, mayor of Pass Christian, mentioned yesterday is that you were actually instrumental in helping the city kind of move along its short-term rental rules, or whatever you want to call them. You've been instrumental in providing fishing opportunities for people who would not normally have those fishing opportunities. I got to see you recently at the boat show where you created an opportunity for kids to be able to be engaged in the community. There's so many different things that you're doing. But I was actually, I wasn't necessarily surprised. And by the way, you got a new business now. We'll come back to that in just a second. But to hear Jimmy speak specifically about the role that you played in the short-term rental deal, that was actually important to you, though, wasn't it?
Well, it was, and that all started because of fishing, like so many other things in my life. Years back, I started looking at how many rooms we were booking at other people's places for clients coming in to stay and fish. And so, man, maybe I ought to buy a house and we'll put some fishing people in there and maybe we'll run it online a little bit. And I bought the first house, and it stayed so booked up online, I couldn't hardly get any of my clients in it. So, let's look for another one. And we ended up with 3 short-term rentals here in Pass Christian, and it was a really good thing. I learned a lot with that. I learned a lot about, I had no idea how many people came specifically to Pass Christian to vacation, right? You don't even really notice it so much all the time. And where everybody was coming from. I mean, all over the country, out of the country. And that was a really good thing. We got to a point in the city where we needed to kind of look at some regulations, and I was lucky enough. Chipper formed a short-term rental committee back then, and I sat in and helped write the original ordinance on it. And then whenever Jimmy got in, we had some alterations done. We formed another committee and was able to help out there. It was a good thing for everybody in the city.
It's interesting. Some cities have handled this well. Some cities have had a lot of contention around it. How do you think, has Pass Christian done a good job of finding the sort of the sweet spot on this?
There are 2 polar opposite sides whenever you start talking about this subject, and both sides are very passionate on it. And my goal or my hope was to kind of try to soften that middle, right? Because you got one side that wants to retain their community and their neighborhood, and there's a lot of misconceptions about short-term rentals. And one of the things that I always preach to people is these aren't $79 a night hotel people coming in, right? they're typically middle-class families that have kids. They want to be able to put the kids in a bedroom and still be able to sit in the living room and watch TV or hang out. They may have pets, right? And that's not necessarily conducive in a hotel room, although they're allowed most places. Hey, we can rent a house. We've got a backyard for the dog to run around. I mean, obviously, we've got 2 dogs. We have 5 kids. So whenever we travel, the last thing we want to do is be cooped up in a hotel. Now, my wife and I may get a nice hotel whenever we go out of town, but the majority of the time, we're looking for a house to rent. So, all of this, as with anything on the internet, you're always going to see the worst, right? Party houses and this happened and that happened. But it's not just the case. That's just not the case here, I think, along the Mississippi Gulf Coast for the most part.
Hey, let's do this. We'll pick it up right there on the other side because I want to complete this part of the conversation before we move on to other things. But we're visiting with Captain Ronnie Daniels, and we'll see you after this break. Welcome back to the Ricky Mathews Show from the Citizens Bank studio. I'm visiting with my friend Captain Ronnie Daniels. He's a charter boat captain, but really he's an entrepreneur. I'm going to change your description from this point forward, except when we're visiting on SuperTalk Outdoors together, celebrating on Mondays at lunchtime the world-class outdoors of the state of Mississippi, because we are the capital of the outdoors in America. How many times have I said that? Anyway, Ronnie, we were talking about short-term rentals and whatever. It is. You're right. It can be a polarizing issue. I never will forget. When my son was in law school at Ole Miss, we too like to rent homes when we travel, even if it's just for a weekend. We'd rather do that than stay in a hotel room. And we rented a nice home, really, really pretty home. And we're the best renters you could ever want because we come in, we're quiet, we leave, and we leave it better than before we got there. But I one of the things I do is run. I've been running for 45 plus years, and I went for a run, and so I left to go start my run. And some guy in a car came by, and he dang near ran me over. This is in a really quiet neighborhood. And, man, I had to get out of the way. And he rolled his window down. He said, "Man, you shouldn't be here. You don't belong here. You don't live here." Oh, man. I mean, he literally attacked me. And I said, "Well, maybe it's not safe to run in this neighborhood." So I went back inside. And we sent the owners a message. And they said, "We're so sorry. This one guy in the neighborhood just won't let up." I guess every neighborhood's going to have one of those.
Yeah, we've seen instances like that. Of course, you're going to have bad apples that come in and cause problems, especially, hey, we're right in the middle of Mardi Gras season, right? There are other events that are more of a party nature than your everyday life. A lot of owners they'll just go ahead and either block their houses out during those times, or they'll raise the rate so high that, somebody coming in is not likely going to be coming there to have a party and be cutting up and getting loud. I was able to do it for about 8 years. One of the houses was right here in my neighborhood. The other 2 were on the other side of town. But for 8 years with the house in this neighborhood, I never had one complaint. Now I went to my neighbors, let them know what we were doing, give them my contact information. Hey, if you ever have a problem, please call me. And I think that's the best way to address it. I think a lot of municipalities had a problem with this because there was this new thing out there, right? And everybody kind of knew about it, but they didn't exactly know what it was. And all of a sudden, this thing was so big, it was everywhere. And then the cities didn't really know what to do with it, right? Your counties didn't really know what to do with it. And some of them took some shots at putting some regulations on it, and that didn't really work out real well for them once it went to court. So some cities just completely backed off, and some cities found ways to mitigate the damage, I guess you would say.
Yeah,
Let's put some regulations on it. And in my opinion, as an owner and a renter, I thought it was a good thing, right? Because the one thing you don't want to have are properties that are not good, where people could get hurt, or there may be code violations, and all of a sudden it's in the news that a family died at a house, or nobody wants that. You want everything to be on the up and up, and everybody have a safe, comfortable place to stay. Hey, Pass Christian was recently rated as, I think, one of the safest cities in Mississippi.
Number 1.
Yeah. Yep, we've got a great community over here.
Hey, Bill, I look back on this, and people who are my age and around my age will remember this really well. But Pass Christian has always been kind of a bedroom community. It always has been. But the one time of the year that it's not is Pass Christian Mardi Gras Parade.
Always been the rowdiest.
Ooh, buddy! I remember. Oh, I had some of the best memories I have about Mardi Gras. This includes my time in New Orleans. Is Pass Christian and the time there? First of all, it was a big reunion. You could walk around and see so many people and get just have a good time. And I haven't been in a long time, but my sense is from people that I talk to, it's still sort of like that. So here's this beautiful little quiet, quaint, beautiful, number one safest city in the state of Mississippi that really enjoys a party during Mardi Gras. It's just part of the deal, isn't it?
Yeah, they people here cut loose for a day or two whenever that comes around, and it's a big event. It's a huge draw. A lot of people in the city. My wife moved down here from North Mississippi, and most of her and her friends had never really experienced Mardi Gras. So, of course, we had to do a ball the first year. We went to one of those in Biloxi, and we had a bunch of her friends down, and I got a float put together, and they all came down. We rode in it, and they thought it was the greatest thing ever. Me, I like to stay on the outskirts of those crowds nowadays. I like riding on the floats because I've got my people right there, right?
Yeah.
Or, if we go to the parade, I like to find somewhere a little back out of the crowd to hang out and enjoy it.
Hey, listen, I often say, this for politicians and people who really want to get in touch with the fabric of Mississippi, you need to ride in a parade, and really see the diversity of the people who are involved, every walk of life, every socioeconomic. I loved, during my tenure as the publisher of the Sun Herald, even before that, I loved riding in parades and just experiencing the people. Because what will happen? You get so insulated in your world, you kind of forget who we are, and that's just a great place to see it, isn't it? There's an energy that you can feel being up on a float, right? It's almost like being in a big sports match, or so you just feel this energy, and whenever you're up there, you're looking out there, and everybody that you're looking at is smiling and laughing and having a good time. Yeah. My brother-in-law Peter Bohanovich, he's never going to grow out of it. He just absolutely loves it. It's like a big fraternity for him as people come back together every year and they just enjoy it. And that's just the way it is. Pastor Chan has done a great job with that. Hey, listen, we'll give an update here in just a second about fishing, but I saw you actually have a new business that you've gotten into, and I actually watched a video. I was curious about how this particular technology that you guys are deploying around the services, of boats, the walking services of boats. And tell me about your business and why did you decide to get into this new business?
Yeah, this happened really quick. An opportunity arose, and it was at the right time for me to be able to do something with it. I'm always looking for something to do. If you ask my wife, it's not that I do all this great stuff, it's that I just can't sit still, right? I've always got to have something to do. Safe Floor is a company that was started in Texas. It's rubberized granules that are chemically bonded to the deck of your boat, but it's not just boats. They'll bond to almost any surface. Porches, patios. It's really popular in Jeeps with the whole Jeeping thing nowadays. Horse trailers are a big one. Of course, boats. Really anything. I've got a local restaurant that I'm going to go by and measure behind their bar for their bar area. It's a softer place for their bartenders to stand. It's totally waterproof and it's slip resistant. So, it fits there. But a guy I know, he had the franchise and he had it up for sale. About 8 years ago, one of our captains, he was the first one that I saw with this stuff. And he pulls in, man, he was so proud of his boat and this new floor and he got put on there. And I can't lie, I was a little pessimistic about it. I looked at us, man, that's not going to last. That stuff's going to chip up. It's going to look terrible in a year or two. Well, I watched it for 5 years and it still looked just like the day they put it on. And he didn't scrub near as hard on his boat at the end of the day as I scrub on mine, right? So it started making sense to me. And I've been watching this stuff over the years, and all of a sudden an opportunity popped up to buy the franchise. Well, my mind was already made up on the durability and the quality of it. It comes with a lifetime warranty. Me and my guys will be going out this week to Texas to do a few days of training. I'm taking a couple of the guys with me, and we're full force into it as soon as we get back. We've already got one boat sitting there waiting on it. And man, I tell you, the people reaching out to me since we announced that we bought the company has been almost overwhelming. I mean, I've been returning messages at 10 and 11 o'clock at night, people wanting quotes on their boats.
Ronnie, that's terrific. Is it affordable? I was thinking, I'm trying to remember what they call it. Is it, oh my gosh. But the surface around my pool is where you splatter the concrete down and then you paint it, and it makes it a little more durable and makes it obviously much less slippery. It looks really nice because it's got a nice kind of finish to it. But is it affordable that you could put it like around a pool?
So there have been a lot of jobs done where people have put it around their pools. I'm not exactly sure what the cost comparison is on the products that are already out there. I know what our product costs. I can tell you on the boating side of things, on the marine side of things, you have foam floors, which are, these different products that they have that they glue down on there. They look really good. They're not as durable as ours is. They are a little bit softer, but we typically run about 30 to 40% less than having the other application done and having ours done.
Hey, when we come back on the other side, a couple more quick questions about your new business, and then we'll shift gears and talk about fishing and circle back on the boat show and the work that you did to create an opportunity for kids to be engaged. I thought that was awesome. Got to see it with my own eyes. We'll continue our conversation with Captain Ronnie Daniels on the other side. Welcome back to the Ricky Mathews Show from the Citizens Bank studio. We're visiting with my friend Captain Ronnie Daniels. He's a serial entrepreneur. You never know what we're going to be getting into. But he recently got into a new business, doing decks on boats and making them durable and less slippery and easier to clean. And you know what's interesting about this new business for you, Ronnie? The fact that you're a charter boat captain, and you not only do you, but people you're around, and you've actually watched this particular decking over a number of years. When you think about the amount of foot traffic and time on the water that you've been able to see, and you can prove durability, that is a competitive advantage, isn't it?
Well, it made the decision real easy. Like I said, this thing happened really fast, and whenever it was presented to me, I really didn't have to do much research because I've been sitting there watching it for years, and I knew what the product was, and I knew how many people had run across these boats that we have sitting there right now, and they still look great. They're holding up great. So that part of it was a non-issue for me.
No, that's cool. So remind me the name of the company.
So our company is called Decked Out Solutions. Right now, you can find us on Facebook. We're still this is brand new, so we're still in the process of getting our website set up. But Decked Out Solutions on Facebook. We've got some great information on there if anybody's interested in it. You can also contact us through there. We are quoting boats right now and scheduling them for application towards the end of March and moving forward.
Excellent. That's excellent, man. Well, congratulations on taking that on. Sounds like it's going to be a great business for you. And
Thank you.
Appreciate you telling us about it. So you and I have done a series of shows. I don't know if we've talked about it on this show, but I think actually we haven't. It's been conversations on SuperTalk Outdoors. But the freeze created some big time challenges for the Barrier Islands, especially, and then all around the Louisiana Peninsula, from all the way over to the Texas-Louisiana line, all the way over to the Mississippi line. Louisiana has had some challenges. The initial reports in certain areas were not good at all. But, now that things have settled down and you've had a chance to kind of evaluate the sum total, the net impact, what's your current thinking?
I think we're pretty good. Not only did we talk about the freeze effects at our last commission meeting, I had asked the month previously to get a full report on speckled trout. Our numbers on speckled trout are on the incline. We're coming up, which is what we always hope to see with our management practices that we put in place. So that was a good thing to see. We've had, over the past 10 years, 10, 12 years, we've had a lot of environmental impacts, right? And that makes it hard. Not including the freeze that we just had. And, 2 or 3 days after the freeze, things looked pretty bleak. But once we got out there and actually started studying it, and we had people going and checking out all these reports and these videos that were being sent in, we started changing our thinking, because, we were getting these videos saying, oh, these are all dead speckled trout. Well, whenever we got there, yeah, there were some dead speckled trout, but it was mostly mullet, which, that's a forage fish. We need them, but they're going to rebound really quick. I think overall the Mississippi Sound did really well through this.
What was interesting is one of the videos that I posted at SuperTalk Outdoors was a video that came from Ship Island.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I'm sure that you probably did look, but in the comment section, it was, by the way, it got tremendous engagement, thousands of people engaged. But there was a whole line of conversation around, this is not Ship Island, the water's too clear. This is not Ship Island. This didn't happen there. This is just clickbait. But and I was like, this is Ship Island. but they didn't want to hear it. I mean, people, all these conspiracy theorists and whatever. I've been fishing out there all my life. I've never seen the water that clear. This is somewhere in Key West or blah, blah, blah. Like they had a freeze in Key West. Man, anyway, you get the point. But it's hard for people to get their head around water clarity this time of year if they're really not out there very often.
I was at Cat Island last week, and in 4 to 5 foot of water, I could see every oyster shell on the bottom. I probably could have flipped a penny over into the water and told you what side it landed on. And that's in 4 or 5 feet of water. And that's what I was explaining to my clients that day. We're fishing, and at one point we were in 2 or 3 foot of water, and we're looking down, and it's like the water's not even there. You can see everything on the bottom. And I told them, I said, come about May or June, I said, you won't even know those oyster shells are there whenever we're sitting in the boat right here. It's a drastic change between the winter and the summer here.
Well, I'm glad to hear what you're saying. The reports out of Louisiana have been, in some cases, not good at all. So, it depends on sort of where it is. And as you and I discussed before, for people who have not followed this story, what happens is, in some cases, really big speckled trout are working their way into these bays, like in Chandelier and other places, a lot of little nooks and crannies. Then the north wind comes and it pushes all the water out, so that their escape route is closed. They can't get out of these little potholes here and there. And as the water gets driven out, the water gets shallower in the areas that used to be deeper, and then the freeze comes. And they freeze, and they're literally killed in those scenarios. And Chandelier, a lot of shallow water in Chandelier, very, very much fits the description of what I'm talking about. If you're going along the marshes that literally line the entire area of the peninsula of Louisiana, in cases where they got into those and there's an escape route, or maybe there's deep holes they can get into, like they do in the backwaters of coastal Mississippi, the damage is not going to be as great. So it just sort of depended upon how deep the water was where they found themselves when the worst part of the freeze came and the worst north wind occurred. And so that's why the reports are spotty as you go around. Some areas unbelievably bad, some other areas not so bad. It just sort of depends on what the lay of the land was where the freeze occurred. But, as we've learned, Ronnie, over many, many years of doing this, the fishery is incredibly resilient, isn't it?
It is. It really is. And, we've been working for years here in Mississippi, ever since we went to the 15-inch to get our spawning ratio back up. And we've watched that begin to incline where we want to be. Chandelier did take a heavy hit. Anybody that's ever been to Chandelier during the winter, they know you go to the cuts. You're going to wade across a lot of really shallow water to get into the interior of the island where the cuts are. And that's where a lot of those fish are going to winter out there. They're going to stay in those cuts. And on a normal winter around here, they've got a water depth there that will sustain them. They can live through that. But like you said, number one, big north wind, that water level is going to drop. Unprecedented cold, right? So I think that water just wasn't deep enough. Whereas if they're here around the rivers, they can find 20 or 30 feet to get down into. A lot of those cuts, the maximum depth in there may only be 10 or 12 feet, and it's not that big, right? The whole cut's not going to be 10 or 12 feet deep. It's just going to be spots. And that'll sustain them under a normal cold winter. But what we had, it just didn't happen. And one of the other things that we saw in Mississippi is it seemed to be really kind of just one or maybe two age classes of trout. It was the bigger trout, which we hate to lose those for multiple reasons. People love to catch big trout. Big trout spawn a lot of eggs, right? But we have recruitment coming up right behind those. You know, we may not see the full effects of this for 2 or 3 years, but we lost some big trout, but we've got all those juveniles coming up, or not even juveniles. The size we lost were really mature trout. We've got mature trout coming up behind those. I think our spawning's going to stay on track.
Yeah, that was in fact, I was about to make that point. One of the things that made some of these videos and pictures that we were seeing online so dramatic is that you were seeing trout that were 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pounds. I mean, the sows, as we like to call them. But you didn't see a lot of smaller trout. So that if you'd seen a range of sizes in some of these pictures, it would have been devastating. But in the videos and pictures that I saw, that's not what was there, and you just pointed that out. So hopefully the long and short of it is that, you know, it will affect fishing, but it won't be something that, you know, would be referred to as maybe a disaster. I mean, it's going to take multiple years to recover from and so on. Hopefully it won't be that bad.
I think we're looking at a good fishing season coming up. You know, I've already been out there some from the Biloxi Marsh to the islands back here in the bay, and we're catching fish everywhere already right now. I've had some really good trout bites out in the marsh. Of course, sheephead bites crazy good right now. Took some guys out the other day. We had some up 8, 9 pounds. You know, there's a lot of opportunity out there, and I think that's going to carry all the way through the summer.
Yeah, and in Back Bay, Biloxi, where we spend most of our time, we haven't seen any change in the fishing at all. I mean, it feels completely normal. And one of the great things about coastal Mississippi, as we've discussed so many times, because you can put your boat on a trailer, the options for you are enormous. You have the ability to go where the fish are, and that makes it super, super special. Hey, when we come back, we will continue our conversation with Captain Ronnie Daniels. We'll see you after this break. We're visiting with my entrepreneur friend here from the Citizens Bank studio, Captain Ronnie Daniels, who is in numerous different businesses, but mostly he loves to entertain so many people who come to coastal Mississippi to enjoy, you know, learning for themselves why I refer to Mississippi as the capital of the outdoors in America. But Ronnie, one of the things that I got to see you recently, I mentioned this earlier in the show, but you've been really committed to introducing the outdoors, especially fishing, to young people. And my son Jordan and I went to the boat show, and we brought Liam, who's only 4 years old, and he got to see, you know, what you guys were doing there to get the DMR and other organizations involved in just, you know, having fun with the kids and giving them some access and whatever. So I want to talk about that. One of the things I want to talk about as well is, and you're a big time volunteer on that effort, is what I'm amazed by is the cost of boats. What's happening with the cost of boats these days? My boat, my Everglades that I bought 10 years ago is worth more today than it was when I bought it 10 years ago. Think about that for a minute. And there's no letting up on that reality, is there?
It doesn't look like it's slowing down. You know, 5 or 6 years I've been saying, oh, they got to start coming down sooner or later. But the boating market appears to be strong and growing. You know, we had that conversation at the boat show with a couple different people. Whenever I started doing the boat show, you were going to pay $1,000 a foot for a really nice bay boat. You know, 24-foot bay boat, you're looking in that $25,000, $30,000 range. And that won't even buy you an old used one now.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, you could spend $50,000 or more for a boat like that now.
Easily, yeah.
So yeah, and the other thing, I mean, there's been some good changes for the better over the years. The boat industry doesn't drastically change from one year to the next. I mean, we're seeing some modernization of the engines and whatever, but it's a design will kind of be relevant most likely years from now. Like my Everglades, for example, few changes in the seat upholstery and maybe some other small things, but it's essentially the same boat as it was 10 years ago. When they find something that works well for them, they kind of stick with it. So you don't see a lot of changes from year to year, do you?
Yeah, for the most part, whole design, use of the boats, that's going to stay the same. What we have seen a huge drastic change in over the past probably 5 to 10 years is the electronic side of things. Like there have been so many advancements on being able to see fish under the water. Live scope came along, our radar technology, safety equipment on the boats, the screens that we're looking at now. I remember thinking that color 4-inch screen Garmin that I had 25 years ago was the coolest thing in the world. And, now we've got 12, 14, 16-inch double screens out there. And, a lot of people think it's a bad thing. Oh, now everybody can get anywhere. There's no secrets. And that's true. But at the end of the day, it's making it safer and more enjoyable for everybody. Also, our technology and trolling motors, power poles, that's come a long way. Yeah. Seen a little bit of evolution on the layouts of the boats over the past few years. I think more wives and kids are they want to be more involved in the boating aspect of thing, right? So you're seeing more seating on the boats, more cushions. They're making them more family friendly than maybe what they were 15 or 20 years ago. They were just fishing machines.
Yeah, I was actually going to buy a yellowfin, and we were headed toward buying a yellowfin. But then when I saw the layout of the Everglades for family reasons, it was a good fishing boat, but it's also a great family boat. And we like to spend time at the islands, and it's got a little bathroom in it, and it's just comfortable for the family. It's also a really good riding boat. So we ended up paying more and got the Everglades, and we're really glad that we did. There's no doubt about that. One other thing, I've got 10-year-old Ray Marine technology, updated the depth finder, of course, along the way. But man, you got to have good depth finder capabilities to do the kind of fishing we do offshore. That is for sure. Mm-hmm. But I remember I paid like $25,000 for the system that's in my boat now, and for half the price, I could have all the most amazing technology. So what's interesting is the technology has actually gotten tighter and a little bit less expensive than it was 10 years ago.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you on that. I hadn't looked at the prices in the past year or two because I've been also running my Ray Marine stuff for quite a few years now. I love them. They're great. That company is solid. Their equipment works very well. Most of your major manufacturers of the electronics are really good. Simrad, of course, Garmin's always been very dependable. There's a lot of good products out there to make boating safer and more enjoyable for you.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, so the kids, you just stay focused on bringing kids into the outdoors. I appreciate you doing that. I'll give you a last word because we got less than a minute left.
Oh, me? I'm sorry. I thought you were saying something.
No,
Look, hey, I was really happy to have y'all out for Kids Fishing 101. I just want to say a big thank you to the ladies at the Biloxi Boat Show for letting me do it, Keesler Federal for sponsoring us, and, of course, CCA. Those rides that they give us to give away put the biggest smiles on kids' faces. I know you saw it.
Yeah, I did, man. It was really awesome. Thanks for your volunteerism. Really appreciate it. Can't wait to visit with you again. Until then, have a great day, my friend.